I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your host, Jamie Jackson.
Hey Lurkers, it's Jamie.
And Angelina.
And today we're going to talk about an entity known as Hatman. Not to be confused with Hatman, whatever you do, I'm going to throw that out there. Do not type experiences with Hatman in your search engine to look this person up. Make sure you spell it right.
It would probably be a very bad return of results.
Just don't do it. I didn't read anything that popped up, but I was instantly like, I did something wrong. Like, this is not the person at the end of my bed.
No,
I remember.
No. Oh, that goes far out there.
Oh, God.
Not that one.
Anyway.
Yes.
So
Hatman.
If you listen to episode 18, The Shadow People, if you haven't, I highly recommend you go listen to that. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to follow along regardless.
Yeah, but it'll definitely give you more context.
But it'll give you more insight after the fact. I mean, we're going to give you enough background that you're going to be fine. But we mentioned in that episode, we were trying to include Hatman in that episode because he is part of that phenomena, or he's related to that phenomena. But sorry, I was trying not to do the do.
I know. He's the dark side of that phenomenon.
He's the very dark side.
Yeah.
Shadow people can be dark and menacing, but he's to the extreme. So we wanted to include him, but we were over an hour, I think, with that episode.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure he got enough attention, not because
we really want to give him attention.
Or we want to give him attention.
Yeah.
But because the phenomena is, I know I can't.
We have to lighten it up a little bit because this is kind of not, it's personal stories.
Yes, we've both experienced manifestations of the Hatman.
Yeah, which is probably what got me as interested in the paranormal ultimately as I am, because of all of the experiences I had when I was younger, especially in my teen years, but way before that as well.
Like I said, he is kind of like a subset of shadow people. Episode 18.
Yeah.
Just throw that in there one more time. We're going to recap here real quick. We're going to run down some of the info for shadow people before we get into Hatman. So for those of you who have listened to the episode, I'm sorry, but
we'll try to make it brief.
Yeah. You can just hit the, fast forward button. So shadow people are, by definition, supernatural humanoid figures. They're described as being darker than dark. Usually they have quick, jerky movements and the ability to disappear through walls, around corners, and sometimes into mirrors. Some have red eyes. Many don't have any facial features at all. Mm-hmm. There's no discernible details or features making them unrecognizable. They look like the silhouette of a person and are typically gender neutral for the most part.
Right.
Most people equate them with being male, but I don't really know that's more because...
I think it's more because the shape. It's a humanoid shape, but it doesn't have a distinctly male or female shape.
Yeah.
It's just a humanoid shape.
Yeah. So, but most people kind of associate them with male. Right. I don't know. They can be hooded, cloaked, solid, wispy, or smoky in appearance. Mm-hmm. Some are seen only from the waist up. Others have visible legs. They are intensely dark. So dark that they can be seen in a dark room in the middle of the night. And I know I kind of mentioned that already, but that's an important part.
Right.
If you've experienced them at night, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people believe that they are benevolent and that they're here to act as a type of guardian, watching and guiding us. Other people think that they're pure evil and intend some type of harm. I think it depends on what they are.
Yeah.
Like what definition of... Because they can be different things, and we're going to talk about that in a minute.
And it's the context, it's the background of the person experiencing it, and all of that, too. Yes. It all plays into it.
So while most of these beings appear humanoid, some appear as a ball or a blanket. I mean, so the shadow part, usually they're humanoid, but I know some people who have seen them, and it is not a distinct human shape.
Oh, yeah, especially if it's the sighting out of the corner of your eye. You're sitting there... And I think I mentioned this in the previous podcast, sitting there in my living room, seeing out of the corner of my eye what seemed like somebody coming down the stairs. I look and there's nobody there.
Right.
It's not like I saw a person. It was just a movement, something. Yeah.
They are considered the most reported type of a ghost sighting.
Right.
So there's several different theories about what they could be. If you listen to our Men in Blacks, some of them share theories to some of these. Ghost is a theory, and it's different than a typical ghost. Many apparitions have some type of discernible detail, clothing, hairstyle, facial features, etc. But shadow people do not possess any of that, other than sometimes being seen wearing a cloak or a hood.
Or clothing, like
or
Eddie.
Clothing, yeah.
Like period clothing. I mean, and not distinct clothing, again. It's more of just
the outline.
And the outline.
And the experience that I discussed that happened on the Gettysburg battlefield, I could see the collars of their uniforms. I assumed that they were actually ghosts in that instance. Mm-hmm. This is where I said that they don't fall in one category or another. It depends on the situation. Mm-hmm. I've seen shadow people on the battlefield more than just the one time. Mm-hmm. So I've had several different instances, and none of those they were all ghosts, in my opinion. The next thing is demons, which we can't have paranormal without mentioning demons, apparently. Right. Many people have a feeling of pure evil when they encounter shadow people. And so this leads a lot of people to think that there's some type of demonic entity. So I can understand that.
Especially when you get into the Hatman kind of thing. And that for me would be the one instance where I would go, maybe, because it's not pleasant.
No. And I guess it really depends on your spiritual background or religious background and your belief system. I don't ever say that demons don't exist. They don't exist to the frequency that television makes you think that they exist. Another theory is that it's time travelers. That they are actually people from the future, and that perhaps this is how they appear while time traveling. I kind of think, like, if you're time traveling, if you're smart enough to have figured out how to time travel, probably you're going to look just like you look in the time that you're actually in. I don't think you're going to show up as a shadow person. I mean, Marty McFly looked like Marty McFly when he time traveled. Yeah. I just kind of feel like, I'm not real keen on that one. Yeah. Astral bodies. So we mentioned this in the last episode. I'm not going to go too into the whole thing. Right,
because then we'll be repetitious.
Yeah.
Listen to episode 18.
Yes, astral bodies, basically, people can astral project. So basically, your soul has the capability, like at night while you're sleeping, to travel where it wants to. Some people are able to do this at will, and some people have no clue that they're doing it. There's a gentleman who actually suggested that everybody does it every night when they're sleeping.
Yeah, and we mentioned in that podcast Robert Monroe and William Bullman. They're two authors. Look them up, read them. They're really interesting.
So basically what this is saying is that your soul, while it's traveling, is what shadow people are. That you're going and spying on people, looking at them while they're sleeping. I don't know that that's what I would do if I chose to but if you're doing it without your knowledge, then you aren't controlling where you're going anyway. So that's one that I would consider a possibility.
It is possible because I think Robert Monroe was doing an experiment with two friends of his, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that they did see him at the time that he said he was going to astral project. And I don't know if it was his form or a shadowy form. I don't recall. So yeah, maybe that's a possibility.
I think it's a very possibility.
Yeah.
For those of you who may poo-poo the idea of astral projection, I know people who have done it. I know somebody who, and I mentioned this in the Shadow People episode, I know somebody, not personally, it's a friend of a friend type of situation, who went to study it and does do that. I know somebody else who does it. Right. I think I have done it, not on purpose. And like I said, the one gentleman actually says that everybody does it every night. And that maybe that's where the dreaming, part of the whole dreaming thing. Another option is aliens. I hate this one. I hate this one because I came to the realization when we did the Shadow People episode that my experience could possibly be explained by that description. Anyway, abductees report that greys seem to be able to pass through walls and closed windows and appear and disappear quickly, so perhaps shadow people are actually alien visitors. And one thing I don't think I mentioned in the description, a lot of the times the shadow people are seen out of the corner of your eye. Mm-hmm. You don't see them by looking straight on.
Right, for shadow people.
For shadow people. That you catch movement out of the corner of your eye and you'll turn your head and you'll just catch them real quick as they disappear. Around a corner, through a wall, whatever.
Into thin air.
Into thin air. There's also suggestion that they may perhaps be from another dimension. You know, mainstream science is pretty convinced that there are other dimensions besides the 3 that we live with. Look at Skinwalker Ranch. Mm-hmm. Everything that goes on at Skinwalker, and we did a 2-part episode.
6 degrees of Skinwalker Ranch.
I know. Of everything, of the paranormal.
7 degrees, whatever it is.
You know, it's crazy how everything is so interconnected. Constantly. We're constantly referencing things that we've already talked about. But Skinwalker Ranch, I mean, if you watch the show Secrets of Skinwalker, they have an astrophysicist. I've talked about him, Dr. Travis. I'm just totally in love with him. He is talking about wormholes, which would allow for time travel or portals. And, you know, some people may think that is absolutely ridiculous. Hello, Einstein came up with the idea of a wormhole. It could explain so many different things.
Well, people thought it was ridiculous that the Earth was round at one time.
Yeah, they did. They did. And they didn't think that, you know, they thought that everything
revolved around
the Earth and not around the sun. And people were excommunicated because of that theory and that the sun was actually the center of the universe. Anyway.
But we digress.
Yes. Einstein was pretty smart. I tend to think that he's probably onto something.
Yeah.
A lot of people explain away the phenomena as a result of sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis is basically the loss of muscle control that happens just after you fall asleep or as you're waking up. And the person has the feeling of being awake but unable to move or speak for a few seconds to a few minutes. And it's supposedly also known to cause hallucinations. That's an important one to know because with the Hatman, this is what they say the Hatman is. The Hatman is nothing more than sleep paralysis hallucination.
Well, good for them. I'm sure they've not experienced it.
That's what I'm guessing.
You know, so
in my particular instance, there's no way I was not experiencing sleep paralysis. Just take note of that that's going to come up again.
Right.
Hatman goes by a couple different names. The Hatman. The Devil.
The Sombrero Man.
Yeah. The Hatter. And the Shadow Man.
Mad Hatter?
The Mad Hatter? Just the Hatter. Just the Hatter. I've never heard him other than the Hatman.
Right. Yeah.
Personally. But these were in my research.
How about the Hooded Man?
No, I didn't see that. So as far as description goes, like the shadow people, he's darker than dark. I did see one description saying that shadow people can sometimes be translucent. Mm-hmm. Hatman cannot. He is always completely opaque, totally super dark. Mm-hmm. He's wearing some type of hat. Most often it's a wide-brimmed hat of some type. Some instances he's wearing a hood, like a cloak with a hood. He's often seen wearing a long coat, like a trench coat or a cape or the hooded cloak.
Not like Superman.
He's not Superman. Nope, because...
If only.
He is nearly always seen in the bedroom, usually late at night, standing over the witness, staring at them while they sleep. Usually he's seen at the foot of a bed. That's like the most common sighting of him. Sometimes people say that they have seen red glowing eyes. I did not see that in my instance. That really would have been a problem. If I had seen something with red glowing eyes at the end of my bed, no.
It's unsettling. Let's just say it's unsettling.
Because that was part of yours. That was part of yours.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so you're going to hear accounts that have 2 different types of Hatman. Hatmen.
Hatmen.
Not hot men. Hatmen.
Definitely not hot men.
They were not hot. Most witnesses report feeling absolute terror and that it seems that Hatman is actually feeding on that fear or terror. It's tall, like 6 feet. Was that your instant?
Yeah.
Okay. So usually they're around 6 feet tall. Some say that he's 8 to 10 feet tall and crouches, like is stooped some. Okay. That was not my experience.
That was not my experience either. I do have chills, however, though, right now. We'll say it's the air conditioner.
Yes, the air conditioner, yes. He, like I said, watches the victim from the foot of the bed, but sometimes he will actually arch his body over the bed towards the victim.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, that just makes me want to. No, we're both having trouble with this episode.
Yeah, This isn't
going to be a long episode because
it
we
probably won't be my favorite.
It's not. No, I don't even know if I'll listen to this episode.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm surprised I'm even doing this episode, honestly, because this isn't anything I've ever discussed publicly.
If I had to do this by myself, I wouldn't. Like, I would be sitting upstairs in my haunted room, and no thanks. Much better in the nice, bright dining room. Yeah. With the dog. Not that the dog's going to do a damn thing.
And there's the crazy factor. We're not crazy.
We're not crazy.
Well, we're crazy, but we're not that crazy. Yeah.
We're Albert Bender
I was
crazy.
going to say, I don't know if that's a good thing. I'm not really sure.
Go listen to the Men in Black episode.
We get it. OCD, Albert Bender.
Yes. Eccentric. We're eccentric. Not crazy. Just,
we're fun.
We're quirky.
Awesome.
We're quirky and weird. We're weirdos.
We have a good time.
We do. And I'm sorry, but we have to try to lighten this up because we're both, if you could see us right now, we are both, we have like goosebumps and just,
and it's mainly because these experiences, when you have them, they change you. They change your perspective of really the world.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And then when they do stop, because they did stop for us, you don't want them to ever start again.
Mm-mm.
So even bringing it up, it's not
we're concerned that by discussing this,
we would prefer not to have it ever happen again.
Yeah, we are slightly concerned that by discussing it, we may be welcoming it back.
Right.
And we're not.
The
universe is paying attention.
A lot of saging, and
I will be spraying that.
Yes.
Probably sleeping with a light on tonight.
Yes. So Hatman.
Okay, so I was saying, what I was saying was that they arch. Sometimes they will arch over the person. Mm-hmm. They don't ever touch the victims. That was never your experience. They never touch you.
No. I did have other experiences of being touched, but not by
Hatman. Yeah. It said that he doesn't ever touch the victims, mm-hmm. but you can still feel the evil.
It's menacing.
It is menacing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a theory that the look don't touch creates confusion, apprehension, anxiety, and fear, and that Hatman feeds off of that, and that might be actually the main purpose of the visit.
I think it is. And I agree. I think that it can be tied to... I try to be very careful when it comes to any type of religious topic because I don't want to, because I'm sensitive to those things. But I do think that in certain cases, a person's religious or a spiritual belief background can affect kind of the way these things are manifested and how they portray themselves. And if you're coming from an extraordinarily fear-based belief system, I think that can exacerbate it. I think that is something that they feed off of. And then we go back to, I know you've heard me mention egregore before, if you've heard any of the other podcasts. And again, that's something that's created over time by many people putting energy into something. So, perhaps that's kind of what it is. It's really, there isn't anything definitive. Sleep paralysis, you know what? I really don't care what people believe. It's just not my experience, and I refuse to accept that as an explanation for me.
No, it was not my experience, and I'm not saying that isn't.
Not saying it doesn't happen.
Some of it, because it does. It's a thing. I mean, it's a real thing. It is not my experience.
No, and
my experience is not explained, but with sleep paralysis.
No.
Continuing with.
For one thing, I wasn't paralyzed at the time.
I wasn't either.
I did move.
I did too.
So yeah.
Sometimes he watches from a mirror or the corner of a room. He's not always at the foot of the bed, but
the mirror would creep me out, and I'm glad I didn't.
I've had issues with the mirror. I'm saving that for another Gettysburg investigation episode.
That's a nope.
I have a problem with mirrors. I don't have a mirror in my... I do actually now have a full-length mirror. It's actually turned so that I don't ever walk straight in looking at the mirror.
When we moved to the house that we live in, I did not put the mirror over top of the bureau on purpose because it's
you were going to say over top of the bed. No! I was like, I don't really want to know that.
That would be completely gross.
Oh, God.
No, our dresser had a mirror that went above it, and in our old house, it was to the side. In this house, it's directly across from the bed. So that mirror has sat in the closet since we moved in.
Nope. That's a nope.
Not putting it across from my bed.
Nope.
Bad feng shui anyway. So.
Yeah, I would not. I have one of those full-length mirrors on the stand, and it is turned funky so that when it's not facing the bed. And when I walk in the room, it's not
energetically. It's better not to have that.
I don't walk in facing my reflection. You know, like I only can see my reflection when I stand in it to look at my reflection. Yes. I don't like mirrors. They scare the crap out of me. I mean, not the mirror itself.
Mirrors at night in a darkened room.
Sometimes during the day, there are things that can show up in a mirror that can scare the crap out of you. That's all I'm going to say. Trust me.
Yeah, I believe you.
So sometimes he watches from a mirror, which that would be really bad. Unlike shadow people who can just disappear, Hatman tends to use the door and walks or glides through it. So I don't really know because I didn't watch him leave.
Every time your light flickers, it just...
So I guess he is more of a gentleman and uses the door, but he can glide through it.
Mine didn't.
Yours didn't?
No.
So yours was closer to the shadow person disappearing.
And who knows, maybe we'll end up sticking him in that category, but I don't know.
He seems to have more physical control than shadow people too, they said. Most witnesses are unable to see or describe the lower body of Hatman. I did not see the lower body.
I saw a full manifestation.
But it was obscured by the foot of the bed, which is usually where he shows up.
I've seen them in different... We'll talk about that, so...
Pets that are present act with hostility or fear towards the manifestation. And a lot of times they show up before or after a major traumatic event. Something else I also read was that if there is some type of family dysfunction in the household where it appears, that seems to be another reason that he manifests, and that other people within the household, should the dysfunction continue, can also witness the Hatman.
That's interesting.
Not in every case, but it did say apparently there is enough of a pattern in some of them that is, some sort of dysfunction in the family, some kind of,
So it goes back to the theory of him feeding off of negativity.
Yeah.
And dysfunction and things like that. And,
yes.
Oh, I have chills again. So, yeah. And I'll be honest that I have not done a lot of research on this. I have seen things here and there. I've watched things here and there on it, but I purposefully haven't because it's too creepy.
I only did this research for this podcast.
Yeah.
And if it comes back to bite me, I'm going to be really ticked. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
That's the only reason why I looked into this. I mean, well, I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
There's actually similar things that have popped up in history and folklore. And I'm going to just touch on some of them. So Germany has the Nachtmare, which is where we come up with nightmare.
Right.
And it was a malevolent female horse that arrived at night to prey upon sleepers. France, Denmark, Iceland, and Norway all have similar legends. You mentioned Odin's...
Sleipnir. He was, I believe, a 6-legged horse. I believe he was black. And pretty amazing.
So there's that. And then you have the old hag.
Right.
That's a Newfoundland base, but it's actually old hag. I mean, you have the old hag syndrome, which is sleep paralysis.
Yeah, it is.
It's what sleep paralysis is also known as, the old hag syndrome.
You talked about the manifestation of him leaning over a person, and actually the old hag does that.
Yes.
Exact same thing.
Then there's I'm going to murder this name, Kanashibari of Japan. I have no idea what that is, but we'll throw that out there. You can look it up.
Okay.
I don't want to look up too many of these because I just
right, because then you have them in your head.
I don't, yeah. Then you have everybody's favorite, incubus and succubus from Mesopotamia, which is where that originated, which are the more sexually motivated ghosts.
Right.
Look them up. We're not going there. Or a family show. You can go look them up. But
and I'm going to say about that I have spoken with people that have had that experience. It is actually more common than you think. People are just too embarrassed to talk about it.
Yes.
So
a medical anthropologist named Shelley Adler said, this entity has stalked human beings throughout history, not merely within a particular society or during a specific time. It's something that they've said has been around for a very long time. And then there is an entity referred to as the Dacho, which is a Southeast Asia folklore thing. And it's...
Oh, yeah, this is
the one we were talking about.
Yeah, this one's creepy.
So it is an entity that comes and smothers its victims by pressing on their chest while they sleep. It's actually still a common belief, and it's been researched because back in the from 1970, 1980 into the 80s, I think, there were 18 healthy Hmong refugees in California who died in their sleep.
And there is actually a YouTube channel that has done a really good video on this. That if we can, we can
find it.
I know I can find it because I know who did it. And
Angelina's always on YouTube.
I am. I have a couple of favorites, and these guys are out of the UK, and they're just really good. It's a well-researched, but it's very interesting. So anyway.
But then in the 1990s, there were another 100 Hmong refugees who died under similar mysterious circumstances. None of the men who died complained of being sick. None of them had any ailments. They were perfectly fine when they went to bed, and they died in their sleep with no explanations.
Yeah.
So that whole Dacho entity thing was actually researched a little bit because of these strange things that happened to these refugees in California.
Right.
Which made me throw in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah.
So if any of you have seen Nightmare on Elm Street and
that
Freddy
was
Krueger...
the one and only that I had ever seen, only because my best friend at the time, and we're still friends, but that was terrifying.
My parents...
Thanks, Leslie.
My parents wouldn't let me watch it. So I went to a church sleepover with a friend of mine, and the pastor fell asleep, and one of the older kids brought like all 3 movies that were out at the time, and so we had a marathon of Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, and 3. My mother was so pleased that she sends me to a safe church retreat, and I come home and I'm like, we watched all 3 Nightmare on Elm Street.
I can't believe you told her.
I figure I was better off telling her than... I guess it was middle school. I don't remember when they came out.
I was in high school.
Then I had to have been in middle school based on timing. Then I was in middle school. Yep. They were terrifying for me.
They were. We were watching it babysitting, and then my friend's boyfriend, unannounced, knocked on the back door. Scared the Jesus out of both of us. So that was going to jump out of our skins.
So basically, for anybody who hasn't seen them, I'm not recommending you go watch them. Because they're gory, and I'm not a fan of gory.
I'm not that kind of a...
No.
I don't like that stuff.
Freddy Krueger is the creepy killer guy.
Right.
And he wears a hat. And he shows up in your dreams. Yeah. So the big thing is not to fall. So what is the song? 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock the door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix.
Oh, man, you
7, 8, better stay up late.
Oh, man.
We used to sing it.
That. Yeah. Ew.
Yep.
Oh, yuck. Now I really have the chills.
So, basically, you stayed up late because if you fell asleep, Freddy Krueger came and he could kill you.
Nightmares.
You're welcome. I'm by myself.
I have to drive home.
You get to go home to people.
Country roads.
I'm here with the dog and a cat. Who...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. If you fall asleep, Freddy can kill you in your dreams, which kind of goes along with this show, but it also kind of coincides with the Hatman, because Freddy Krueger is wearing a wide-brimmed hat.
Right, and I'm sure that's where they got the inspiration.
I would imagine it is. I mean, a combination of different legends.
The striped shirt, not so much, but...
Yeah, he's got a striped shirt, and he's got, like, a gloved thing with giant, long...
Well, there's that whole backstory of him dying in the fire, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I don't remember all that because I don't want to.
Yeah.
So, that's just some background on that. And there's 2 quick accounts that I want to share before. They're talking about... This is actually where there's a psychology professor who speculated that Wes Craven, who is the person behind Nightmare on Elm Street, that Craven's movie and the impression it has had on America's popular consciousness may explain why so many people tell very similar stories about the Hatman manifestations. But then they said, like, it's the chicken and the egg. What did the film inspire the terrifying reports?
Right.
Or Or is the truth the other way around, that the terrifying reports inspired the movie?
Yeah, and that's hard to say. I mean, like, my experiences had zero to do with anybody or thing in a hat.
And then it
was way before the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
mine
was after the movie.
Okay.
See, I had my experience as an adult.
Ah, okay.
Which, it's interesting. We've had experiences, but they're totally different. Which is good, because we're not going to tell you the same thing.
Right.
But then this also went on to say that Wes Craven also might not have known that there were strange sleeping deaths occurring frequently in the Philippines, Thailand, and Laos.
And he probably didn't. There's no reason for him to have known that. And again, this is pre-internet.
Yeah, and that some medical professionals in those countries have a name for the phenomena, and it's nightmare death syndrome.
Huh.
And doctors in the U.S. employ a similar term, SUNS, or sudden unexpected nocturnal death syndrome.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah. I did not know that.
Me either. U.S. doctors have speculated that an underlying heart condition combined with culture shock related stress may explain SUNS among America's Hmong refugees. So this is tying in with the show. Okay. But whether visions of terrifying hatted men also appeared before them as their hearts seized in their chests, nobody can say, because they died. But that's an awful lot of people. That was over 100 people.
Right.
So all of a sudden, people who never had a condition, never had anything show up, they're perfectly healthy, and all of a sudden they're dead in the middle of the night for no reason.
Had a quick memory that popped up. I think that episode might even be called like The Curse of the Dutcho or something like that. It may have been associated with some sort of a legend of a curse. I'll find the episode so that she can post it up there, because it's really good. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So now I'm going to tell you a couple accounts. The first one, they're very short, is a gentleman by the name of Tim Brown. And I believe he is the person who started the Hatman Project, which is a blog dedicated to the Hatman.
Jeez.
It's people who send in accounts of the Hatman.
Okay.
And he said, I saw a tall human-like figure, and the figure looked like that of a man. The man had no distinguishable features whatsoever. I could see no eyes, no nose or mouth, only blackness. He looked like a shadow, only darker, much darker. He had a very wide-brimmed hat and a long trench coat that flowed as he moved. He stood there for what seemed like an eternity. He then moved very slowly and without sound back into the hallway just out of view. This other one appeared on the Hatman Project, which is the blog that Tim Brown started. All of a sudden, this black, two-dimensional being appeared. It just walked right through the door. I was paralyzed with fear. I sat there looking at it, hoping it would not notice me because I was in the dark area. It stood for a moment, and I could see the very detailed contours of its form. It wore a derby, carried a briefcase, and a cane. It appeared to be dressed like someone on business or a traveler.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting account.
So those are two accounts from people who aren't us.
I like theirs better.
Yeah, there's right. Yep, they're done. Okay, time to go. So I will share my Hatman experience first. It happened about the year 2000. It was either 1999 or 2000. So I was
that's about a year
24.
After we graduated from college.
Yes, it was right before. It was probably before we graduated from college. So I was about 24. I was engaged. I lived with my fiance and my daughter, like 10 or 15 minutes from my parents. And my fiance was out of town, and we had gone ghost hunting, and I did not want to go back to the townhouse by myself. Even though my daughter's with me, I didn't want to go back there by myself because, I'm really brave. And I had made arrangements to stay with my parents. So it was a Saturday, because that's always when we went ghost hunting. And we would always go to dinner, go ghost hunting on the battlefield, and then go get ice cream. We actually investigated in the area the Peace Light Memorial.
Yeah,
if you're
this
familiar
is Gettysburg.
This is Gettysburg Battlefield, yep. So the Peace Light Memorial, that area is where we were investigating.
Okay.
That is on the first day's battle, if you're familiar with the park. Or if you're not, you can look it up. Peace Light's pretty famous. So there's a little bit of background, and it has to do with a little bit of a Gettysburg ghost story. So those of you who enjoy that, you're going to like this, I guess. there was a time frame that the group that I used to investigate with had regular communication with a spirit that we refer to as Ed. Every week.
I remember Ed.
Every week he would show up and talk to us through EVP. Mm-hmm. If you're not familiar with EVP, I've mentioned it before. It's electronic voice phenomena. You use a recorder. You can pick up voices. Anyway, we had conversations with him. And that's why we called him Ed, because that's what it sounded like he said his name was when we asked his name. And it was literally every week at Spangler Spring, he would show up and talk to us. Huh. He followed me home on at least one occasion where I was also able to record EVP. Around the same time, I had an experience with a mirror in my room. See, I didn't know this was in here. I'm like checking out my notes, and I didn't realize because I mentioned I have a problem with mirrors. Yeah. This is why. Yeah. I had seen a face, not my own, obviously, in the mirror, and it terrified me to the point where I removed it from the wall. And to this day, I still refuse to look into the mirror directly. Like, that particular mirror is here at this house. It is in the attic. I don't know. Actually, it's either in my attic here or it's in the basement of my parents' house because it is not on the wall. Okay. I don't want to look into it. No. It was my great-grandmother's. Okay, so let me give you a little bit more history. It was a match set with a dresser. Mm-hmm. We were always told the dresser was haunted. Mm-hmm. I ended up with the dresser and the mirror. I got the matching mirror. Mm-hmm. The dresser kind of was broken and falling apart. I didn't have room for it, so I ended up getting rid of it. Yeah. But still have the mirror. Kelly said, I always thought the mirror was the thing that was haunted. And I love how she does that kind of crap. I love that. She does that. Oh, take this rocking chair. Oh, you're experiencing paranormal activity?
I forgot to tell you.
Guess what? It's haunted. Hey, you want this haunted clock? I'll tell you that's haunted because it's not our family. Oh.
You can hang that right next to the rocking chair.
Next to the mirror.
Next to the mirror, yeah.
Oh,
haunted
goodness.
Corner.
Anyway, so, I mean, it's all good. I'm fine. I'll take all the family's haunted crap. Except I still have the mirror, but I won't get rid of it. But it's currently nowhere hanging on the wall. At all. After this investigation, so we're investigating. Mm-hmm. After this investigation, I go back to my parents' house. It's late. Mm-hmm. It's probably after midnight. Mm-hmm. And during the middle of the night, something wakes me up. Mm-hmm. And I look at the foot of the bed, and there is this shadowy figure at the foot of the bed. Uh-huh. There's no facial features. There's no visible facial features at all. Nothing. It's just a black silhouette. It was what I considered to be a male. It was roughly 6 feet tall, and it was wearing a wide-brimmed hat. I had the impression it was wearing some type of jacket or coat. I was able to see cuffs of some sort and a collar, like within the shadow shape. He had his left arm hanging by his side, and the right arm was holding onto the post of my four-poster bed. Mm-hmm. So it was like a canopy bed. It didn't have the canopy, it's just the posts. Mm-hmm. I distinctly remember seeing his fingers curled around the post. So it was a cream-colored bed, so I could see the fingers of his right hand actually gripping. I could see his 4 fingers. His thumb was behind. Right. Like, I remember that in my seeing that. I basically was terrified. I couldn't explain where the sudden fear came from. I go ghost hunting. I do all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I was so terrified that I immediately closed my eyes. I had a Celtic cross that I used to wear. Mm-hmm. I held onto my cross necklace and just started repeating the Lord's Prayer over and over and over again. Because that's something that I just had in my head from memory growing up. And it was the only thing I could think of. And I just, out loud, was repeating it constantly. At some point, I fell asleep again. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't for at least 2 hours. And when I woke up, I was still holding the cross like clenched in my fist. Mm-hmm. The next morning, there was no sign that anything had even happened. Nothing was out of place, except I couldn't find my glasses.
Like Velma.
I know. So I was like...
lining it up.
Yes, just like Velma. And just like Velma, I can't see anything without my glasses. I'm supposed to drive with them. So I'm really... like, OCD comes up again. Mm-hmm. I do have the same rituals wherever I go. So I place my glasses in the same spot every night. I have my own bedtime rituals. And even though I was at my mom's house, I still put it in the same places. Like, I actually brought my alarm clock from home, which was next to the bed. And I always set my glasses, like, on the alarm clock. Right. So that if I need to get up for whatever reason,
exactly
I can feel I know right where they are, and I can grab them, like if there were an emergency or, anything like that. I know that they're right there.
I know exactly what you mean. I do that with mine.
They weren't there.
Yeah.
My mom and I tore the house apart. Didn't find them. And, I had to go to work. And at this point, I'm 15 minutes late leaving because I've spent the time ripping the house apart looking for my glasses. And I have to wear them to drive. I mean, I have the code on my license that says corrective lenses. I mean, I can drive. Not so much now. Like, my vision is worse now. So I don't know. Now, I don't know. But, I needed them to drive. I wear them when I get up. I wear them all day, and I don't take them off till bedtime. Right. So it's something that I need to have. So I had to leave without my glasses. And I had my bag of clothes, like I had my clothes in a bag, so I left. I get to work. I was lucky because my manager where I worked was also a paranormal enthusiast and also went ghost hunting with me. And so when I'm like, this is what happened. Yeah. She was okay with it. Of course, was like asking questions. We were in the back room and I had set my bag of clothes on the counter there. And while I'm telling her everything that had happened, she looks down at my bag of clothes, and sitting right on top, neatly, like folded, with the arms folded in, sitting on top of my clothes are my glasses. The bag had been checked. The bag had been dumped out. Yeah. Because, everything had been pulled out. Checked all the pockets of all the clothes in the bag. They were not in that bag. It's funny because I also mentioned, and when I talked about that, I was also seeing a shadow boy of sorts peeking at me from around the corners of my parents' house. Episode 18, The Shadow People. That's what I talk about. This actually happened after, which is important because most of the accounts of Hatman happened after having experiences with shadow people. Okay. My daughter also had issues with things in the house. She told one person who stayed in her room that if they felt like someone was leaning over them staring at them, it was just her guardian angel. And if they heard tapping, it was just Ed, and just tell him to stop. I forgot about that. She never spoke of seeing shadow figures. I always chalked it up to something following me home from an investigation. I thought maybe it was Ed, this person at the end of my bed, because he kind of had attached himself to me. I know some people might think that's weird, but he literally did.
I remember you telling us the story of Ed.
Ed was around
in college.
Yeah, Ed was around for a while. Yeah. I was kind of attached to him. Yeah. Literally. I mean,
you saying you had to tell him to go home. Like, get out.
I had to tell him to get out. I actually felt... Well, it's another story for another day. Yeah. We won't talk about Ed now.
Next.
So I never realized that this Hatman that I saw was... I didn't realize. I was like, I don't know, looking through some blog post or something and came across some story on the Hatman. And that's when I realized, holy crap, this is something that lots of people see. He did not have red eyes. He didn't loom over top of me. I was awake. And I could move because I did move. Like, I was laying on my back and I looked down and I could see him at the foot of the bed. And I still have the picture clear as day. And I have a sketch that I did, kind of what he looked like. I'll have to include that on, not show notes because I can't put photos there, but I will put it on the social media. But it was just absolute sheer terror. I don't think I've ever felt since. I don't remember ever being that afraid before, and I've never been that afraid after. Yeah. Like, I've been afraid, and I am kind of a scaredy cat when it comes to certain things. Yeah. But it was the most terrifying thing I've ever dealt with, and all it did was stand there. Right. It never tried to touch me, never moved towards me. So I looked and I saw, and I was like, holy crap. And I remember pulling the covers up, not over my face, but like up to like my ear. And rolling on my side and holding my cross necklace and just constantly, I was repeating the Lord's Prayer out loud, like I was speaking. And I remember seeing the very start of the sun coming up before falling asleep. And like, I guess I must have been relieved that the sun is coming up and fell asleep before actually having to wake up. But it was terrifying. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever dealt with. And I don't ever want to deal with it again. So please don't show up. Your turn. Tag, you're it.
Tag, I'm it. So my story is going to be quite a bit different. My experience did not include a person with a hat. It was actually a hooded, robed figure that would manifest. And it wasn't a one-time thing. It happened many occasions. When I was a teenager, I had various experiences before that. I had some vivid dreams. I remember when I was much, much younger, and I'm only bringing this up now because Jamie mentioning that shadow people were often seen before. I can recall a dream from when I was even much younger of being chased by two very black figures in a field. It was actually at my schoolyard, in like just the fields. There was a graveyard on top of the hill across from my school, no lie. They were chasing me, and then the next thing I remember is them standing there and shutting me in. To me, it felt like a tomb. It was just this black room with a metal door and just being shut in. And that it was just a dream that I had had. It was a nightmare. It was terrifying. And I'm only mentioning it that because of what you had said. So fast forward, I think these dreams probably started when I was preteen to teen. And I had these experiences up through my 20s. They did get farther apart as I got older. I did have a lot of, emotional things going on at that time. My mother had died when I was 9. I moved to a new town, just the opposite side of Baltimore, but still, it was a big enough change. It was just totally different. So yeah, I had a lot going on. So I remember waking up. I had insomnia terribly back then. I had a really hard time falling asleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I couldn't fall back asleep. I would have sensations of things sitting on me at night. It was a lot. It was a lot. And, definitely you can chalk it up to being just having a lot of emotional things going on. That's I get it. That's fine. So the experience one of the first things that I recall was waking up at night feeling like there was something there, feeling that presence, in my bedroom. And I also had a 4-poster bed. It was a single bed. It was a 4-poster antique bed with had the pineapples on it, 4 pineapples. I remember waking up and there was this tall black figure, black as night, standing at the foot of my bed. It was robed, it was hooded, and it had red eyes. And I could see no facial features. All I could feel was absolute sheer terror. It was like nothing I can describe. And, I don't really remember if I was reciting anything. I think I was probably calling on all the angels or whatever I could at that time. It was just terror. And so I do remember pulling the covers up over my head, just thinking, oh my God, please go away, please go away, please go away. And then eventually I would fall asleep and I would wake up and it would be, I do remember occasions when I would see the glow of light under the covers. And I would fall asleep with the glow of the light. So it's funny that you said that, because I do remember just being up, just terrified. I was never touched. It was this feeling of dread and fear. Another time that I remember very clearly was, and I think it was not too long after I saw the figure at the foot of the bed, I woke up one night and it was standing right beside my bed at my shoulder. And that gives me the creeps. That freaked me out. I can't even tell you. I was just terrified. And again, I did move. I did creep the covers up over my head. What are you going to do? I just wanted to shut it out. It didn't do anything. It was just standing there. It was the same manifestation. It didn't have a face. It was just this feeling of sheer terror. It just felt like pure evil to me. And at that time, because of my belief system, which has changed significantly, I'll just say that, it's nothing like my belief system of back then. But I think my first thought was like, oh my God, it's demonic, it's evil. It's because I didn't have a reference other than that, because you're kind of brought up however you're brought up, and that's your reference point. So, I would have these experiences again throughout my teen years. And then I remember I lived in an apartment by myself. It was in an old train station, actually, that had been converted to apartments. And I remember waking up one night, and actually, let me backtrack a little bit. So from being a teenager, I actually moved into apartments in Ellicott City with a friend of mine. And we were both college age, pretty much right out of high school, maybe 19, 20. And I clearly remember waking up one night and seeing, and it was kind of at the foot of my bed, but it was actually several feet between the door and my bed. And I wake up and there's this tall, black, hooded figure again. I don't recall red eyes at that time. I just recall the tall, black, hooded figure just standing there staring at me. And again, the fear. And I was like, what the hell? Why? Because I hadn't had that experience for quite a long time. I don't know what brought it on. I don't know why it was there. I did have a cat, a black and white cat, that was asleep on my chest because it used to sleep on my chest. The cat was still there. The cat did not wake up. Again, I just sort of slunk under the covers and fell back asleep. So then the last time that I recall seeing that particular figure, I had other experiences, but that figure was in the apartment at the old train station again. And at that time, I lived by myself. I don't know that I had a pet at that time. I can't recall. But I woke up and again, this tall figure is standing to the right side of my bed, not as close as it was that time, as a teenager, but it was there again between the door and kind of, my bed and just standing there staring. And it was that same feeling of just fear and dread and terror. So what is it? Is it sleep paralysis? It doesn't matter to me, honestly, what people think it is. I don't need anybody's validation for my experiences in this case in particular, because I know what I felt. I know how it felt. I was awake. I was not asleep, and I was not paralyzed in any of the instances. I do think that the idea of it feeding off of our fear is very real. I think that in each of those instances and in each of those places in my life, I could certainly see where I was experiencing trauma of one kind or another, or going through a great deal of stress. So I could definitely see that whatever it was or is manifests to people who are in really difficult situations, because it does feed off of their despair and off of their fear. And, and I also think maybe if your own personal system, belief system, whatever it may be, and I'm not even talking about religion, but your personal philosophy for life. I think that it's possible that it feeds off of the energy when you really don't know, because I think there are parts in all of our lives where we don't know what's out there and we aren't sure of who we are and what our beliefs are and all of those things. And so I think that it's possible that this being, whatever it is, just wants to instill that terror. Interestingly, as I became stronger in my own personal philosophies and what I felt was real and wasn't real and all of those things, the manifestations, a lot of things just stopped, because now I just have a completely different belief system that's constructed out of my own personal experience and what works for me. And, I don't know if that, as we become stronger in our own sense of self, if maybe that's one of the reasons why it's like, I think I'll go find easier prey than you. I'm not really sure how I'd react now. I don't think I would like it.
No, I don't think. No, I don't even want to try to find out.
No, and I don't either. And I'm not saying that I want to have some sort of a run-in with, the black hooded figure again, because I really don't. But at the same time, I don't have time for that. Yeah. Like you have no place in my life, because I have no place for you. I
don't know that it's interesting, the fact that I really think it feeds off of the terror.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's seeking, and it's trying to get out of people, which makes sense that it would show up to somebody whose life might not be I don't want to say perfect, because not, but it's
in upheaval.
There's some sort of change happening or dysfunction or whatever. And I was sitting here thinking, and I mentioned in the episode, the Gettysburg Ghost Investigation episode, that we had started to see the lady in white in Gettysburg, and she shows up when there's a promise that's broken. And then I found out after the fact that the fiance that I had was deciding that he couldn't go through with getting married, and was telling people that, and that's probably why we were starting to see the lady in white.
Right.
That was something I learned in hindsight. This is the same fiance that I'm referring to now, and it was not too much after this incident that it fell apart, and I ended up having to move back into my parents' house. So there was already some dysfunction there.
Right.
There were already some issues going on where he was apparently questioning, but there were some things that I wasn't thrilled with that were going on as well. So it's possible that is what attracts it. You know, like it almost seems sometimes like the shadow people it's flunkies. Let's come out. Oh, yeah. Hey, there's some shit going on. There's some dysfunction going on, and time's ripe. You better head out there. She's going to be really scared this time. You know,
Right.
I don't know. It's just, I don't really want to know. I don't want to experience it anymore.
No, maybe it also manifests to people that are more open to things like this. I mean, honestly, most of the people that I know that are fascinated by the paranormal are fascinated because they've had experiences. And most of the people that are saying, oh my God, it's just sleep paralysis, what's the matter with you, have never had an experience because they're not open to it.
Right.
So, you get into these extreme camps for a reason. It's just like I wouldn't try to convince somebody who believes that it's all bunk that it's real, because I'm not going to change their opinion. I don't need them to sit and tell me and invalidate my experiences and say, no, science will explain it this way, blah, blah, blah. Science is proved wrong constantly because things change as we learn more things. So not saying that science is wrong, but I'm just saying that as we learn,
there are
we
things
grow.
that current science can't explain.
Even if it tries to.
Like, not to bring up Dr. Travis again, but
wormholes.
It's actually something you sent me, a YouTube video that he was talking about in April before the latest season 2 started. So he was being interviewed, and he actually said that he doesn't like the term supernatural or paranormal because it means it's like outside the realm of normal, and his thought is that science can explain it. We just don't have the science yet.
Right.
Like, it can be explained. We just haven't figured out the science part of it yet.
Right.
And it was like such a profound moment, because it was like, he's absolutely right. There is no science right now. All you can do is disprove the obvious, and then you're just left with, okay, maybe.
Right.
Which I've said before, but that made total sense to me, and was like, he's right. We don't have the science yet, but that doesn't mean we won't. And we'll be able to say, this is what it is.
Right.
But yeah, I wasn't paralyzed. I could move.
Right.
In my instance, I moved. It was not sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
I've never experienced sleep paralysis in my life. Ever.
I have.
I have never had an episode
many times,
of it.
actually, more than once. But again, it was always in conjunction with something else happening. So can I explain those sleep paralysis episodes just by the whole sleep paralysis with hallucination? Maybe. Maybe. I can't say that it's not. I can say I wasn't in sleep paralysis mode during these particular instances. Right. So take it for what it is.
Yep.
Don't want to do it again.
Don't want it showing up. So
Nope.
Universe, please.
Yeah, because that's been a long time ago. Many moons
mine
ago.
was about 21 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't really need to.
No, probably longer than that. I
Yeah.
don't want to date myself, but but it was probably on the higher end of 20 some years. So
yeah, I don't want to experience that terror again.
no.
And like you mentioned, it being up closer to your head. Like, I don't know how. It was terrifying enough, but it was kind of like I had the bed between it and me.
Right.
Having it that close, right there.
It was right at my. I can still
No, thank you.
picture it. It was, and that was what was so terrifying. It's just that, like in your sleep, you wake up and you turn your head. It's like that feeling when somebody's standing behind you and staring at you. That's been
You can feel it.
scientifically
Yes.
proven. People feel it, and that was how the manifestation would happen to me. I would wake up because I felt it. And I would open my eyes and it would be there. And that time, that was the most terrifying experience I had ever had. The other ones paled in comparison because it was right at my shoulder. My night table was right above my shoulder, right against the wall and next to my bed, and my flipped alarm clock, and that was right there. And yeah, I mean, I can still very clearly picture it to this day. And I honestly don't even go there. I'm only going there for this podcast because I haven't gone there for years, because it's not something I want to think about.
Yeah.
It's just not pleasant, you know?
I know.
So
it is not. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode.
I know. I feel like we need to end on a happy note.
Well, the happy note is it hasn't happened for a long time.
Yeah.
It's been over 20 years for both of us. So let's hope it remains over 20 years.
If you have any interesting stories you'd like to share, please do.
Yeah, if you've had a Hatman experience, please.
Yeah, or a hooded man, because there is a different manifestation of it.
Email us, lurkpodcast@yahoo.com, or you can message on any one of the social media apps. Let us know. I would be interested to hear, because like with mine, I just assumed it was a ghost from the battlefield that followed me home, even though it was terrifying. I never experienced that terror ghost hunting. I mean, I get scared ghost hunting.
I know.
But it's usually my own imagination.
Get in the car, close the door. I think it can follow us in here.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of my fear actually comes more from the living than the ghost. So it's like I hear a noise or something and I don't know. My instant thought is not, oh, it's a ghost coming to get us. It's, oh, crap, it's a person, and I don't know who it is, and they could kill us. I watch way too much true crime on TV.
And I don't. I can't. I cannot watch any of that stuff.
I do.
It's too much for me.
Yes. Well, I keep mentioning, being by myself. My husband and my son are off camping, and I am literally by myself in this haunted house tonight. And hoping I'm not going to live to regret this. It's... My imagination is what makes me afraid, and it doesn't last very long. I was terrified about this for a long time afterwards. Yeah. And then when I stumbled upon that article, and it was like, then I kind of felt better, because it's like, I'm not the only person. But then it was terrifying, because it's like, well, then what is it?
Well, and since you brought that up, because that is something that I did want to say too, that I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell anybody. I kept it to myself because it was weird. And I didn't even know it was a phenomenon until I think I met you and Kelly, because we shared this interest in the paranormal. And I really didn't have any other friends that had the interest to the degree that I did. I read books and all kinds of things, but I had never come across this. And so I also felt like, oh my God, my people, like I didn't know that other people experienced this. I thought I was absolutely crazy. I just thought it was me. So yay, there are many of us.
Yes, there's lots of us. So definitely share your story if you've had one with the Hatman, or you think you had an experience with the Hatman. Share it with us. We'll save it and include it on a future episode, or maybe even like a short bonus episode or something. Sometimes it's nice to be validated. Yeah. When you've had an experience.
And even if it isn't the exact, like the Hatman, like I said, I had other experiences too. Yeah.
Share your experience. We're always looking for experiences. We're looking for podcast episode ideas, because I'm hoping that this podcast lasts so long that I run out of ideas. I have many ideas myself, but I know what interests me. I want to know what interests people who are actually listening to us. So if there's something in your particular area you're familiar with that you want shared, or an experience that you want explained, or whatever, just please... there's many ways to contact us, and we're happy to look into it. And
if you're from another country and you have a different take on this and a different iteration of it, I'd love to hear that. Because I think it's fascinating. Definitely.
And I know we've had listeners on every continent except Antarctica, because I don't think they have podcasts there. I don't think penguins listen to podcasts. I don't think so. But I mean, I know it's wide ranging as far as areas. Definitely share your theories or folklore if you have it. I'm fascinated in folklore. Yes. So that's going to do it for this episode.
Yes, it is.
As always, you can find us wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcast. You can find us at lurkpodcast.com. The episodes are listed there. We also have all of our social media apps listed there: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Definitely encourage you to like, subscribe, follow, whatever. At least one of those, because I post any photos that are related to the episode on there. We also have a new Facebook group private group for lurkers. So I encourage you to join that because I'm trying to be more interactive in there. We have a poll going.
Yeah.
To see what people like the most. Please be more helpful than Angelina, who's like, I like everything. Or Liz, who's like, I chose them all because I just can't pick one. Or Deborah, who's like, I agree with Liz and Angelina. I like them all. So that was so helpful. So right now,
like all of the topics.
Right now, the consensus is that ghosts and hauntings are number 1, and aliens and UFOs are number 2.
Yeah,
I try not to make a number 2 joke.
And it's late. We're tired.
It is late. So definitely join that and join in the discussion because that's part of the fun. Create a discussion. Share a photo. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
As long as it follows the rules.
Just be nice. Play nice. Be kind.
Nice. Yes. So we also have merch. Before I forget that, that is at lurkpodcastmerch.com, and there's t-shirts, there's hoodies, there's tank tops, there's kids clothes, I think there's onesies, toddler shirts, kids shirts, you name it, we have it. They're cute.
They are.
My grandkids have them.
They're fun.
I guess that's going to do it. So as always,
keep lurking.